Hi, Shalom. Friends, I think part of maturity is acknowledging what you're capable and what you're not capable of. In this blessed country, truly a blessed country, independence is very highly valued. And part of being independent is making reasonable choices. And by us, the capacity to choose and to freely choose is really, it's not only an item of liberty, but it really defines our very essence. And part of maturity is to acknowledge that we can't always make choices on issues that are beyond us. So all of us remember and are perhaps in the process of making decisions for our children. The child says, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to go take this subject, I don't want to brush my teeth. And of course, we insist upon this. And we say, when you get older, you'll be able to make other decisions. But in order for you to make those other decisions, you need to go to school. Because actually, you'll get a lot of information, you'll get reasoning abilities, and so on and so forth. Which is really a lot of words. We're making decisions for our children. And we're making those decisions because we believe it's in their best interests. They say that there was a 16-year-old boy who unfortunately felt that his father was a jerk. They did not get along. And one day he slams the door, he says to his dad, "You're a jerk, I'm leaving." And he left. And over the 11 years, he met a lot of people, and he became a mensch. At the age of 27, he realizes he should go back. Knocks on the door, and he's welcomed in, and he has tea with his dad. And he looks at his dad strangely. He says, it's remarkable in 11 years how much you matured. You've become so much wiser in the 11 years that have passed. And that's a sad commentary on the way we look at things. Let me ask you, the decision to live, is that a decision that should be given to man? Well, I know in America, I believe it's true in all countries, suicide is considered a crime against society, against the self, against the family. And if you help someone commit suicide, you're an accessory to murder. But the person made a decision to end their life. Without getting too deep into it, we could suggest that decision is too great to be left to a person. Because every person's life is connected to a past, a present, and a future. And even if you feel that your life is not worth living, it might harm your parents, your siblings, your nephews and nieces, and indeed society itself. To opt out of life when life is difficult is the equivalent of saying, I can't handle stress, I can't handle difficulty, so make sure that the challenges that I receive are on my terms. No society could promise that. Well, so God did not ask us if we wanted to be born, we were born. How about the ability to choose your parents? Can anyone actually imagine that choice? When would you make that choice? At the age of 6? At that 16 rebellious age? At that 27 more mature age? When would you be able to make a reasonable decision that these two individuals, this male figure and this female figure, is most appropriate for me to have as parents? I think if you thought about that, you would realize no one can make such a decision. It's beyond a person. What we could do is live with a given. These are my parents. I could look at them as a liability. I could look at them as an asset. I have their genes. I could use their genes for greatness. I could use their genes to justify my decisions to be evil. But the decision of which two human beings will be instrumental in bringing you into fruition is really not up to you at all, because you can't make such a decision. Which leads me to what I want to talk about. How about choosing your gender? How about the choice of, I would like to be male, I would like to be female? When would you be able to make that decision? When you're young? When you want to try out for a play and you want to act as the princess? Or is it perhaps when you're of the age where playing basketball is more important than anything else, and why can't I be a boy? Okay, that's too frivolous. Well, is it when you're applying for a job, where being male could be an asset, being female could be an asset? Would you then change your gender? How about it would be when people that you choose as friends? Would you have more friends, deeper friends, if you were male? So perhaps you should change them. You have to understand that there are certain things which are beyond man, just in terms of to make a reasonable choice. In my opinion, I would say that the fact that these three choices are not choices at all. You were born to your parents, either male or female, is a given. That's your template. And now, everyone looks at you and interacts with you in a certain way. Because you are male, not only are you brought up a certain way, but all of the people that interact with you as a male. It makes no difference what you feel inside. They're treating you as if the gender is masculine. And if you're born female, it's not a decision to act female. You are female. And therefore, from the moment of birth, whether it be as silly as picking the colors of your room, to something far more fundamental in how to talk and develop your personality, it's always with that feminine slant to it. When you get older and you begin to make choices, you could decide to be in the military, but as a female. Today it's almost common. No one even blinks when in an emergency situation, the police, I don't even know what they call them, policeman, police officer, shows up, male and female. The female police officer is a police officer with all of the rights and all of the respect necessary, with all of the authority. And yet, in many ways, she diffuses a situation, especially in a domestic scene situation, where the female cop could accomplish a lot more than the male cop, even though they're both police officers. They both are there to assert the authority of the law, of the state, of the city. But one does it through a male and one does it through a female. And this is true whether the female is a doctor or whether the male is a nurse. It makes no difference. Each one will be doing their responsibilities, but without changing their basic identity of male and female. Because male and female are infinite in the sense that masculine behavior is not push-ups necessarily, and female behavior is not necessarily nursing a child. It's far greater than that. So what happened just recently? Well, what just happened recently was that one individual chose to have operations in the plural, to change his gender, at least superficially, from male to female, and he made it very public. I won't talk to you about Jewish law. From Jewish law, a male becoming a female is against the Torah. The Torah forbids sterilization. The Torah forbids cross-dressing. And in general, the Torah has strong opinions about what male and female are all about. But I'm not talking about the Torah necessarily as much as a human understanding. How are we to look at this? There's something that I was thinking to myself. When a person actually publicly changes, he's sending a message to all of society, and that is that the man you're sitting next to, the boy you're supervising in Little League, the young woman that you admire in an athletic competition, or the matron, they might not be who they are. There's a girl in that boy. There's a boy in that girl. There is no boy. There is no girl. There is no male. It's only it's. So we have it's. Is that who we are? Can we see that? If you think about the message, the boy who wants to act feminine, and we say to the boy, but that's not what boys do. The girl that wants to go into a boy's bathroom, you say, well, that's not what girls are supposed to do. You say, well, maybe I'm not a girl. Maybe I'm not a boy. Maybe I'm only a little bit of a boy. In other words, what I'm suggesting is that the harm to society far outweighs any little bit of personal satisfaction that this individual chose for himself. And were he to have kept it for himself, I would not know. But to actually publicize it and then to celebrate it on a cover of a magazine, this is absurdity. The harm to society. You know, there's a joke of a man who would go on a bicycle and cross a border. And he would cross the border between France and Germany, sometimes twice a week, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a month. And he always seemed to be visiting. And they couldn't find anything that was suspicious about visiting, but it just didn't seem correct. So obviously they began to suspect him of being a smuggler. So they looked for a pretext and they began to frisk him. They looked for drugs, they looked for illicit this, illicit that. And after many times checking the backpack, checking the pockets, checking underneath his hat, they couldn't find anything. Until finally, one of the border guards said, "Tell me what you're smuggling, but I won't prosecute you." And he laughed. "I'm smuggling bicycles." You see, he was on a bicycle, but he threw them off by wearing different outfits. They got caught up with the outfits. They didn't recognize the obvious. We often get caught up with my feelings. The obvious is you are a man, you are a woman, you're born, you have parents. You have a place in society. You have the way society looks at you. That's a given. Then there's the external trappings in a sense of how you interact with them. So let me conclude. This thought that I'm sharing with you is not meant to be a halachic analysis. It's merely, from my perspective, It's meant to share with you that there are certain things that human beings should acknowledge that it is greater than their decision. Put it simply, we would have very little sympathy for the man who goes against the best medical knowledge. We would say that there's arrogance coupled with stupidity. He knew what the doctor said and chose to act contrary. I think we have to learn how to be a bit humble, not so arrogant. If we are born in a certain way, we have to assume that there's a reason for this. How we deal with it is a struggle for each person. And the exception, rare exception to the rule, cannot make a rule. Good luck to each and every one of us in acquiring the knowledge to know when we can make a decision and when that decision was made for us, for our benefit. Shalom.